Now, one of the Congress members speaking out against this bill the loudest joins us tonight to talk about the updates. Congressman Fred Keller. Congressman, thank you for joining me, sir.
Glad to be here, Liz, and talk about what's going to be happening in Congress.
Yes, please update us on this. First of all, you have been one of the strongest opponents to this bill. Can you tell us why?
Well, what the bill does, and you outlined it in the opening when you said about internet searches and the information you can gather. Also, when we look at the corruption that happened during the Obama administration, looking into American citizens involved in the Trump campaign, really an overreach of power. And this really doesn't get us to where we need to be to make sure that our rights are protected as American citizens, and also giving the people in national security interests the tools to do their job also. I think there's a balance to be gotten there, and this bill falls way short of getting us to where we need to be.
And I'm glad you mentioned this balance, because after the president's tweet, the Department of Justice, specifically Attorney General Barr, through a spokesperson, urged President Trump to veto this bill should it pass Congress. This is what they said. The Department of Justice said the House is now poised to further amend the legislation in a manner that will weaken national security tools while doing nothing to address the abuses identified by the Department of Justice Inspector General. Congressman, what is that balance? What provisions need to be inherent to this bill?
Well, again, when we look at this and we start to uncover what's happened, and we've seen a lot happen since we first passed this, and then it came back from the Senate in some of the reports and some of the investigations that have come out. And we need to make sure that our bill protects all the rights. And until we get through the investigation and see everything that's happened, this isn't getting the job done. And it's not giving the tools to our people, to the good people. I mean, there are a few people here at the top in the Obama administration that really are the ones that took advantage of this and did some things they shouldn't have done. And they need to be held accountable. We need to make sure it's tightened up so that never happens again. And it's really a shame that that it was allowed to happen, but it's our job to make sure it doesn't happen. And I think till we get through all this and get a decent bill, we shouldn't be voting on this bill that's coming through here tonight.
So when you say until we get through this, are you referencing the Durham investigation, referencing the Department of Justice investigation into the FISA abuses or the targeting of the Trump campaign by Obama administration officials?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We need to understand what all has happened there and make sure that our bill is inclusive enough to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And when you look at these investigations that are still happening, we want to get to the bottom of it, and we want to make sure that we don't do anything prematurely that leaves any loopholes in there for people to do this again.
So is your position that this bill shouldn't even be considered until potentially several months down the road when we do publicly get the results of the Durham investigation?
Until we as Congress have that information, I think we should be very careful of what we do.
And do you have any idea when you might be getting briefed on that, even if it's before the public has knowledge of it?
Well, I haven't seen a timetable, so I'd hate to speculate on that, but I'm hoping that we can have things wrapped up here quickly, and we can get on with the work of making sure that the people that do the good work of protecting us have the tools they need, while American citizens are protected also, and our constitutional rights are protected as citizens of the United States.
Right, and the part I think that is a sticking point for me on this is when you see these 17 abuses from the Horowitz report, so the 29 different cases where there was malfeasance, 29 investigations, I should say, where there was malfeasance. It's amazing to me that those who propagated that malfeasance can't be held criminally liable, because while a lot of people agree that what they did was unethical or violated FBI protocol, there's not a specific law under which they can be prosecuted, even though their actions violated the constitutional rights of innocent American citizens.
That is troubling, and people should be concerned, and you highlighted it also, about what data they can collect. You know, when you're talking about they can collect search data from internet and, you know, the telephone, who you call and what you do. There's a lot of things in here that American citizens should be very concerned about, and that I'm very concerned about for the people I represent. I want to make sure that the people I represent are protected, that if they have people doing work on their behalf, that their information isn't going to be shared, that their government isn't going to be able to spy on them or some bad actors. And that's really what happened here. There were some bad actors in the Obama administration, and for whatever reason, it was allowed to happen, should not have happened. And you're right, there should be penalties for people that violate the rights of other American citizens.
And I think that those provisions need to be inherent to the FISA reauthorization so that Americans can feel that their constitutional rights actually are protected and they aren't vulnerable to perhaps the inevitable bad actors that do end up in politics and in high levels of government. Congressman Keller, let me ask you one more question on a slightly different topic before I let you go, and that is Congress meeting in person versus this proxy voting. The Republicans have filed a lawsuit against Speaker Pelosi. Can you update me on this situation?
Actually, that lawsuit, I'm actually part of that. I was the Republican leader allowed us to be joined on that suit, and we should be coming to work in Congress. That's what we've done for over 200 years. We've come down to Washington, D.C., and we've conducted the business of the people in public. And, you know, all the people we represent, whether they're farmers or store clerks or nurses or doctors or firefighters or policemen or factory workers, they're going to work every day. Now, we go to work in our districts and we have meetings there, but then we come down here to actually have their voice heard. That should be done in public. That should not be something that is handed off to someone else to say, oh, I'm going to let somebody else from another state vote for the people that I represent. You know, the Democrats, and before we've done this safely several times since this pandemic started, and now all of a sudden we can't come down here, or some people can't come down here and do this. We had like 12 people before that couldn't come down. Now there's almost 70 Democrats that can't come to Washington to actually vote on legislation, have that debate and open. Yet, you know, and I'd hate to think what could happen. You know, you could potentially have somebody at a fundraiser somewhere and say, well, just a minute, let me go make sure that my vote is cast by somebody from another state. That's not how this was designed to be done.
No.
It needs to be done in person.
No, and I appreciate you standing up for that. I think that's a very valid point you make. Congressman, thank you for the hard work that you are doing. I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you.